Hello everyone, and welcome to the Cioffi Brothers Podcast. I'm Ken.
I'm Alex.
And today we're going to be talking about a very, very special figure called Holiday Hal. So, this is kind of the first of what is hopefully many more podcasts like this, where we focus on more custom content. So what this actually is a custom figure that I put together based on a lot of criteria. But before we get into that, I think what we're going to do is show you guys a quick video kind of giving you some background on the Holiday Hal figure and why we had to go through the effort of making a custom version of it. So let's take a look at that real quick.
Justice League and Justice League Unlimited were animated series in the DC animated universe, produced under the guidance of Bruce Timm and many others. The show ran from 2001 to 2006 between the two series, with the show undergoing a bit of retooling between Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Along with the cartoon came the action figure line. Ironically, the action figure line outlived the show itself, running from approximately 2003 to 2011. What is important to note is that the show used the Jon Stewart version of Green Lantern. The show ultimately decided to use the Jon Stewart version as opposed to the in-universe established Kyle Rayner or the long-standing comic version of Hal Jordan. Kyle Rayner's absence was jokingly referenced in an episode entitled Hearts and Minds, which established Kyle Rayner's continued existence in the DC animated universe. He was referenced once again and actually made an appearance in the episode entitled The Return. However, because Kyle Rayner's animated origin borrowed bits of Hal Jordan's comic origin story, there was no room for the existence of Hal Jordan other than a minor cameo. This cameo existed as a signature on the side of a plane that read Colonel Hal Jordan that appeared during the first appearance of Kyle Rayner in Superman the Animated Series, which had already been established as in continuity with Justice League. Then came the episode The Once and Future Thing Part 2, Time Warped, which contained a brief cameo of a timeline-displaced Hal Jordan trying to talk the wife of the villain, Kronos, into helping them. It was a moment much appreciated by fans of Hal Jordan. Not because of dislike of Jon Stewart, let's face it, he's awesome. As a matter of fact, JLU is what made me love the Jon Stewart character. But rather, it was a long-awaited representation of a beloved character within the Justice League Unlimited universe. Now that's a lot of prelude to get to Holiday Hal, but it does set the stage, so stick with me. During the Christmas of 2005, Mattel created a limited run of about 100 figures just for employees, as a special thanks for all their work. This figure was a holiday-inspired packaging of, you guessed it, Hal Jordan. As a result, the nickname Holiday Hal was coined. After this run, the mold for this Hal Jordan, based on his appearance in the aforementioned episode, was destroyed. This understandably brought on the ire of some die-hard collectors. Essentially, there was a figure in their favorite action figure line that they could not collect. Shortly thereafter, there were many action figure customizers who tried to mold and paint existing figures to try and capture that which they could not have. However, a glimmer of hope appeared, in that one of these very exclusive figures made it into the wild, and some very ingenuitive collectors and modders made a cast of the head that could then be placed onto the body of an existing figure once the original head had been removed. This brought the possibility of having a Holiday Hal replica that was extremely accurate, that much closer to reality. Then, rumor has it, Mattel tried to make peace with collectors in 2009 by releasing a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive of a 3-pack which included Abin Sur in Green Lantern uniform, Sinestro in Green Lantern uniform, and Hal Jordan, not based on his JLU appearance, in a flight suit. However, the rub here is that all the figures' heads were interchangeable, essentially meeting the need of providing a version of a Hal Jordan Green Lantern within the Justice League Unlimited action figure line, even if it wasn't Holiday Hal. Shortly after the release of these figures, those resourceful modders and sculptors modified some of their existing molds of the Holiday Hal head to fit on these interchangeable bodies. This created an easy and accessible option for collectors looking to fill the hole in their collection left by Holiday Hal.
All right. So now that you have a little bit of history behind Holiday Hal, we can start to talk about this figure and kind of what went into why we wanted to put this together. I think basically what it is that, I got excited about the idea of a figure that was just not available commercially. And I kind of like that idea that you could just go with that you have something that's not available anywhere else. And also the rarity of this figure really kind of lends to that as well. So I don't know. Do we want to start talking about the process that we went through first?
Yeah, I think the process of building the figure, because it is more or less a custom build that
absolutely.
you put together.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think we'll start, kind of at the beginning. When the figure came out, there were a lot of pictures on the internet of it, and kind of those things that you download and you kind of drool over them, like, oh, this is such a cool figure. I'd love to have this. It's too bad it's not available. Blah 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 blah. So I had all these pictures, and as I was looking at them, I was like, I wonder if I could remake this background, remake this card. I was like, it looks pretty similar to ones that are already out there. At least the front of it, there's some figures that were out there that had the blue background, which I had somewhere, but I actually don't have that anymore. I ended up buying it, but we'll get to that in a minute. I was like, I might be able to do that. So a little while goes by, and I kind of worked on it a little bit at a time. I took some measurements of a card that I knew was about the same dimensions. And I threw up a green background, I threw up a red background. I'd walk away from it, I'd come back, I'd be like, oh, maybe I can try to do the text here, do the text there, so on and so forth. Then I purchased this figure because I know, as we talked about in the video, a lot of the modders were using this particular figure to fill in the gap for their Holiday Hal. It's got this similar paint job of what Hal Jordan would have. The only difference is it's got a lot of the lines from this version of the figure.
It has the actual the lantern insignia is actually imprinted on the figure itself, as opposed to some of the other ones where it's just painted.
Yep. So then came, as we talked about in the video, the San Diego Comic-Con figures, which were just awesome. They're really cool. And came with it the prospect of eventually, hopefully, being able to get a Hal head that would fit on one of these bodies, because they pop off, which is pretty cool. So then I was able to find the figure, or the head for the figure, on eBay for like $20. It was all painted and everything. I know there's a couple of sites now that you can actually go to and just purchase the head, but at the time that I couldn't find that. I bought this Amazo figure because the card and the bubble was of the right design for this figure. Recreated a lot of the packaging in Adobe Illustrator. I had to scour the internet for some high-resolution imagery for the character pictures here. And this one right here, Red Tornado, I actually had to scan off an existing card because there was not a high-quality version of him online at the time. I kept finding imagery for the Young Justice version of Red Tornado, which kind of screwed me up.
Yeah, he's slightly different in Young Justice than he is in Justice
Well, either which
League.
way, stylistically, it's not it's not the Bruce Timm style, which, I mean, Young Justice is an awesome show in its own right. Maybe we'll get to that at some point. But ultimately was just not right. So I was able to kind of fill in the gaps here and there with those characters. And then the big piece is recreating this art on the back, and we can do I can output this in Illustrator and put this up on top of the screen so that everybody can see this. But recreating this art of Hal in the background was very difficult because it looked like it was hand-drawn by Bruce Timm and airbrushed a certain way, and it was really, really hard to try to replicate that look and feel. I tried drawing it out a couple of times. I tried just tracing it in Illustrator, but I could never get the effect quite right. And then I finally found a tutorial online that kind of informed as to how to create an airbrush effect within Illustrator, and it worked. It's a great effect, but there are layers upon layers upon layers of this character because you have the outline, you have the background color, you have the foreground color, then you have the airbrush color, and it's a very complicated piece of art. So in general, though, I'm very happy. I think the back came out the best out of anything in terms of things that I actually had control over. The back came out the best, but we'll get to that in a minute. So once I finally had my digital files all set, I went to Staples and had them printed out on some high quality gloss paper, brought it home, and actually spray mounted it to a comic book board back, because I found that I was actually able to use that and get the right kind of thickness and feel, and even this, it might be technically a little bit thicker, but in general, it's just the right, it feels right when you hold it in your hands in terms of it being a figure. And then lastly, the very, very last piece that I don't have this with me, I meant to bring it with me, was painstaking about was the logo on the chest. Because the logo on the character itself is this flat Green Lantern logo, and I wanted one more like the Holiday Hal version. And I had to find a special hole punch on Etsy that is this 10mm circle, so that it was just the right size to punch the hole out, and that's the level of insanity that I took it to.
Well, you can see that the insignia on the Holiday Hal is slightly different than the insignia on the other.
Right, which we're going to get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to go a little bit different here. We could do pros and cons here, but I feel like that would ultimately be a bit self-serving in terms of talking about, what I think is good about something that I customized, or what I think is bad about something that I've customized. But to show that we're not without reproach, we do a lot of reviews on a lot of different things. We are going to talk about the things that I think came out well with this figure, this custom figure, and the things that I think, maybe could have been done a little bit better. So we can start going through that.
Sure. I'm gonna say you're gonna take most of these.
You can take whatever you want. I did kind of put them together.
You go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So these first two, I really feel like I painstakingly reproduced this art, in a very faithful and hopefully very accurate way. I think you would be very hard-pressed at a glance to tell the difference between what I've put together and the actual version. Certainly there are some differences which we'll get to, but I think it's insanely accurate. I don't know if this is one of my pros here, but this card itself, you see a lot of replicas online, and they do kind of a generic gradient in the background. And one of the things that I was painstaking about was making sure that these ray effects were just right on the card and just right on the character card itself too. So there was just a lot of attention to detail that I don't think you see from a lot of the customizers online, and that's just mostly because I've spent so much time on it, and it's because it was a labor of love. That's why I think it's in the position that it is. So the next good that I would say is that a lot of the art is vector based. So going back to the reverse here, all of this art is done in vector base, and what is done vector based, and what that essentially means is that no matter how big or small you blow this up, it's going to retain the exact same quality because it's done mathematically. It's not pixelated. There are some, the characters on the front these are just kind of raster images, which basically means that if you get in close enough, you'll be able to see the pixels. But the back here is all vector. The rays in the background's all vector. The white here is vector. The name across the front of it is vectored. A lot of the logos, I think the only logo that is not a vector is the Cartoon Network logo down here. Even the Mattel, I went so far as to recreating all the Mattel logos, the WB, the DC logos, everything, just to make sure that it looked as crisp as possible.
Yeah, that effect shows.
Yeah.
Definitely shows.
Yeah. Why don't you take this one?
I'll take this one.
You know what's going on.
I got this one, yeah. So what's great about this figure is it's based off of something like the Amazo figure, where it's a smooth...
Hold that up real quick.
It's a smooth design, unlike this...
The body sculpt.
The body sculpt, yeah. Unlike this John Stewart and this John Stewart, where the Green Lantern insignia is imprinted onto the figure itself. This figure is just a smooth body, so you
Right.
can easily recreate the correct Green Lantern insignia.
Well, what's nice about it is that unlike this John Stewart figure, if you were to pop the head off and put a Holiday Hal head on, is the Holiday Hal figure does not have the imprinted Green Lantern symbol. It's just a smooth body like a Mazo here. So in terms of accuracy, if you're going for accuracy, having the smooth body is really helpful.
Yeah.
So this one's one that's a real bugaboo of mine, and it's really silly, but just making sure that the symbol on his chest is right. A lot of the figures, the Holiday Hal figures that you see, they do a variation of this, or it has, right here, like on top of Adam Soar's chest there, it has that emblem, which is actually on this figure underneath the sticker here. But it was really important to me that one of the standout pieces of the Holiday Hal figure is the Green Lantern emblem, and making sure that is just right. It's unique. You don't see it in any of the other Green Lantern figures in the line. I mean, you have Ion Kyle Rayner, you have John Stewart here, you have just reach here a minute. You have the Silver Age or Golden Age Green Lantern. Alan Scott Green Lantern. So it's a unique symbol, and making sure that is accurate was important.
Yeah, it's really a symbol you don't see almost even in any sort of other media. His main symbol has been the traditional Green Lantern insignia, the very flat edges, which I'm a personal fan of. I know you happen to like this insignia, but I like Kyle Rayner's insignia best, but that's a different story. But yeah, definitely, it's something he painstakingly went through.
Spent a lot of time, way too much time, trying to make sure that the card was right.
But
that the symbol was right.
Definitely pays off.
So, card back thickness. I mean, you can talk about this one.
Yeah, I mean, we glanced over it a little bit. Picking up the figure, I mean, it feels like something I would pick up, when I'm buying a Transformer, one of the, smaller Transformers with the carded backs and the bubbles. It feels like it feels like a real figure. It feels like I'm going to Walmart, going to Target, and I'm picking up Holiday Hal.
Yeah,
for the holidays. But yeah, I think it turned out great. I really like it. It feels really nice.
Yeah. I'm definitely happy with how it came out. And then the last of the good that we'll touch upon is that the fact that the head that we have on this figure is pulled, appears to be pulled from the original sculpt. If it is not pulled from the original sculpt, then the sculptor did a darn good job resculpting the head. I've seen them online where you can see that they've used either, I think they use actually this. For a while they were using the Superman head and trying to resculpt on top of that to make it look like Hal Jordan. And then I think some other ones they've taken this Kyle Rayner figure and resculpted his hair so that it looks like Hal Jordan, and it just doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right, and it looks like a poor facsimile. So the fact that this is so insanely accurate, whether it's pulled from the original sculpt or not, is just awesome.
And the paint apps are great.
The paint application, we bought it. I bought it painted, so that was
it just worked out.
It
really
just worked
well.
perfectly, and even the green is fairly close. You'd be hard pressed to tell that there's a difference there.
Yeah.
So, now that we talked about the things that I think went right with this custom figure, I want to talk about the things that I think I didn't do very well, or things that I think I could have done a little bit better. Some of this is really nitpicky, but some of it I think is legitimate. So, like, this first one is legitimate, and Alex can talk to this one because it is a legitimate, it's a frog up.
Yeah, I mean, if you notice, it's hard to notice. Some of the glue got a little messed up in places,
right?
And being a custom figure, that's gonna happen.
It's not gonna be perfect,
and it's not gonna be perfect. But I mean, it still looks nice. But yeah, the glue, if you look at it, purists are gonna say the glue is not right on this.
Yeah, it's a little frogged up, and admittedly that was me because I was a little. One, I'd never done it before, so I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. And another was that I was just really, at that point, I was just so anxious. It was so close to being done. I was like, just little shaky hands. So yeah, you'll see, the glue kind of spills over in a couple spots, and then this spot right here, I was so mad. It got on my finger. I actually used super glue because when I pulled this bubble off the existing figure, off the Amazo, it ended up. There was a lot of extra. When you pull figures apart, there's
any bubble based figure.
Yeah, there's cardboard, there's paper. So I ended up having to take a fine grit sandpaper to it, and it was a little bit foggy. So what I was happy about is that when I applied the super glue, I ended up using super glue. When I applied the super glue, it actually filled in all that area, so that when I placed it against the character board, you ended up with a really nice, very clean look to it that is more akin of a figure that you'd find at the store. But in doing so, I got a little bit on my fingers, as you're apt to do, and went to pick this up. It got stuck, and now we have a mark. So I mean, I think it's kind of nice in the fact that it ends a little bit of authenticity to it, and the fact that it might be something that you'd find on a shelf somewhere, but looks pretty good.
Yeah. I'd say I'll take this one.
The font. Do you know what specifically I'm referring to in the fonts?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
So why don't you take it? I was gonna say, but go ahead.
So again, and this is very.
I do know what you're talking about now, and this is so nitpicky.
It's so nitpicky. But go ahead. Yeah, if you know it.
The correct me if I'm wrong. The font in this area where it says Emblem Crusader, slightly off.
It's not the right font.
Slight.
If you were to compare against it, so the Justice League font is not right either. It's very close. I was able to find one that was closer. It was called like Alien League, but when I went to install it on the computer, it like replaced my Helvetica and screwed everything up, and it ended up ending up with like a weird symbol for the eye in order to like distinguish it from the copyrighted version or whatever. But it was not good.
Graphic designer problems.
Exactly. Yeah, graphic designer problems. And then the Emerald Crusader text, which what's funny. Here's a little anecdote, kind of taking a jag here. So the Emerald Crusader part here on this card, it's funny that I assumed, because it was very hard to see the Crusader part on any of the pictures that are online, I assumed that it said Emerald Warrior for the longest time, until I was watching one of the extras on one of the DVD sets for the first season of Justice League, and what they had this particular symbol of John Stewart, and it said Emerald Crusader. It was like up in the corner behind Bruce Timm, and I flipped out. I was like, oh my god, that's the symbol, that's the one. It says Emerald Crusader, not Emerald Warrior, because you're assuming Emerald Warrior because that's what's commonly associated with Hal Jordan and Green Lantern. Yeah. And so I was very happy to have noticed that, so that I could make sure that I got that text right. I'm assuming that text is right, because I'm assuming that they just reused art. I could be mistaken. But that's what we're going. That's what we're going with.
So I'd imagine they reused a lot of the art.
So the chatter bit. Do you know what I'm referring to the chatter?
I don't know.
So there's some
more your project than it was my project. So.
Yeah. I feel bad taking up all the talking. So there's some slight chatter to some of the characters on the front of the card, and what I mean by that is that I was only able to get so much in terms of quality of this art right here, and if you look at it very, very closely, there's some pixelation around the edges of the characters, so they're not perfectly smooth. Whereas this art was recreated from the ground up. I started doing that with Superman, and the amount of time that it was going to take me to recreate every single one of these characters in vector-based art was going to be just astronomical, and we'd never get to this podcast. It would never happen. So I made a decision there, and ultimately, when you look at it this big, you can kind of tell. When you look at it at this size, it's hardly noticeable. And I ultimately decided it was not going to be worth the effort to put in order for it to be in vector-based.
Yeah, it is what it is. I do know this one. So, like we were saying earlier, this bubble what they commonly refer to as a bubble in the collector, the
plastic
world,
that protects the
character.
figure.
It is the Amazo bubble,
right,
from this particular Amazo figure.
Yep.
Because it is that figure, it actually has a little bit of extra space in places that
for accessories,
because the original Amazo figure came with the I-beams.
Yep.
He came with a mace,
and he also came with a batarang.
A batarang. So there's a little bit of extra space, and you can see it. You can notice it if you look where the accessories would have been if it was still the Amazo figure.
And I was actually really bummed because when I bought the Amazo figure, I didn't realize it had the accessories, and I actually bought this particular character specifically because I was like, oh, Amazo, why would he come with any accessories? I mean, all these other characters, it makes sense if they have accessories. Why would he have any accessories? And I was like, oh, he's got the perfect body type for the character that I'm using. He's got a smooth head. He doesn't have any weird things going on with his head, so that, Holiday Hal's head will fit in there just perfectly. And, of course, I get the figure, and there's accessories everywhere. So you have to make do with what you got. Ultimately, I know it's there, but I don't think it hurts the figure too terribly much.
No, you don't notice it unless you're looking.
Yeah. So you can take this one too.
Again, I mean, nitpicky. Some of the cut on the cardboard here isn't exact. You can notice a little bit of the
rough edges,
hair difference in space between the white and the actual logo. Just a little bit.
I had to cut the corners by hand, so they're not as smooth as I'd like them to be. I thought about getting like a corner cutter, but ultimately it was down to how much more do I want to spend? I had already spent an extra $5 on a special hole punch for the chest icon. I was like, you know what, I can just cut the corners by hand. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and it doesn't look bad. It's just something, again, we're talking purists. We'll notice that corners are a little bit wonky.
Yeah.
But that happens.
So this last one, so the coloring on this card is not exact. The front, for instance, I think is quite a bit darker and a bit more muted in terms of the greens that I used compared to the actual figure. If you were to find pictures of the figure online. And I'm being a little bit nitpicky there, but it is something I notice. I don't think it's something that hurts the figure terribly. But I think the back is relatively close. Again, I might be a little bit dark in places, but I'm dealing with photos that are probably almost 10 years old, and trying to make do with the reference that I have. But I think
there's not a lot of high quality scans.
There's not.
There's figure.
Not. A lot of the figures that you find online, it'll be one of the scans that have been around online. Not a scan, a photo of the back that people manipulate so that it fits within a card back, and it's pretty low quality. And then usually on the front, what they end up doing is they end up just taking one of the existing blue ones, converting it to grayscale, and then doing a duotone so that it's green. And that's not what I did here. Every single one of these characters has been recreated in vector art. These little the shadow characters in the background, obviously these characters that I talked about are pulled from different sources online, but every single character in the background is vector. I've recreated every single one to match the card, and it is not the same as the blue character card. So there are slight differences. And on that, one of the things that I might not have included here on the bad is these characters are not in quite the right spot. In the Holiday Hal figure, you have Superman right where he is, but then each character is down a little bit further along the line. And I'm not sure why they did that, probably just to distinguish it. But so from that perspective, that's not entirely accurate either. And it's a little bit nitpicky, but
again.
These are things. I mean, I'm trying to be honest here. Like, I know where there are shortcomings and where there are pitfalls on this project, and just want to show that we're not above criticism, because we don't get it right all the time either.
No, and for what you're doing, I think this turned out to be a great figure. We have grades are next.
Well, typically we do grades, but I do feel it's a little bit self-serving. ultimately, I think I'm not going to grade myself. I mean, I think I did very well here. I think
Get an A for effort.
A for effort. I give myself an A for effort.
A for
absolutely.
effort.
That absolutely.
It's true. It's being me and my brother are huge Green Lantern fans, and being able to see something like this that is kind of the holy grail of not only Green Lantern but Justice League and
Unlimited figures,
the animated series figures. Like, this is like.
It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
And it's pretty cool to see it recreated and just see, even if it's not the actual figure, it's cool to be like, oh, that's
Holiday Hal.
Holiday Hal.
It's close enough that I'm gonna hang it in my collection with with all my other figures here, and I will be happy with it not having an actual Holiday Hal figure.
Yeah, I mean, unless you want to go spend thousands upon thousands of dollars.
If you can even find it, even if you can find it. I mean, I look on eBay every once in a while, just Holiday Hal, and you see a lot of the replicas come up. And you never see an original, so there might be some swapped around on some of the forums of the diehard collectors, which I've never really got into those, for no other reason other than the fact that I don't have the money anyway, so why would I? And I'm not that much of a diehard collector necessarily of this series, but I really enjoy this character. So I think that's probably enough for us rambling on about how awesome Holiday Hal is. So we thank you for joining us to talk about, kind of the first of our custom content type of figures, or type of episode. And I think hopefully in the future we're going to be doing a lot more of these. We're definitely looking to gear up for some more stuff in terms of doing custom content, doing stuff that we create, whether it's it's content just for our podcast, or whether it's creating items that we can then do judgments on. Fun stuff, yeah.
Fun geeky stuff.
Yeah,
that's what we do.
It is what we do. We're probably just about to the scene that we were talking about. We have the episode playing in the background here, almost there, but we're not going to subject you guys to any more of our talking. But as always, thank you guys for joining us. Feel free to subscribe, comment, and
share our video.
And share our video.
Get us out there.
Yeah, get us out there. We'll talk to you guys next time.